So last week, Canon pre-announced a brand new camera just ahead of CP Plus, aimed specifically at content creators. Now, this is the first time Canon has directly went after the content creator market outside of like a basic entry-level camera like the R100. And it's going to send shivers down the spine of a lot of the other brands. So let's talk about this, because as a content creator or a consumer, we're eating. We now have multiple different options from the different brands out there for a beginning content creator camera. Now, before we get into all that, what is a content creator camera? I'm talking about something that's more video centric. You're looking at 4K 30, maybe 4K 60, hopes to do some kind of log for color grading, and primarily being able to do video and record for at least over an hour. Now, we've had options like Sony with the ZV-1, you've had Nikon with the Z30, and I'd probably say more now the Z52. And recently we just had Fujifilm come out the gate with freaking an XM5, which is a whole different beast in my mind, but that we'll save that, right? And now Canon has finally stepped in the ring. Canon, who has been kind of out of the gate, nowhere to be found, kind of just hanging back, like not even in the race, out in the stands, decided to drop this announcement before CP Plus. And I think that a lot of content creators who have been interested in Canon over the years should really take a look. Now, of course, this is be mindful that we have no idea what the price is of this camera. But let's talk about the comparable cameras that are out there right now and what we think the price will be. So first things first, let's talk about the fact that what is the Canon Powershot V1, right? This thing is a 22 megapixel CMOS sensor beast. It is an equivalent to almost an APS-C. It's actually just slightly kind of smaller at a 1.4 inch sensor, which is not usually heard of. It's almost just a little bit above micro four thirds, and it has a built-in 16 to 55 millimeter equivalent lens. Like, it's not an interchangeable lens. So that already tells me right there, this is the biggest competition against the Sony ZV-1, right? It's an equivalent to a 2.8 to 2.8 to 4.5 aperture setting. So you do get some decent lighting. You can do full 4K 30, which is downsampled, I believe, but you can also do 4K 60, except the 4K 60 has a 1.4 crop. Now, most cameras right now that are doing 4K 60 have some sort of crop. I'm looking at the Nikon ZF. I'm looking at most of the Sonys. I think the FX3, does FX3 have a crop? Maybe I'll have to check later. But you still have the ability to do 4K 30 if you want to, which with a crop factor is not that bad, especially if you're using it more for B-roll and slow motion panning and stuff like that. Otherwise, you do get 3 stops of ND filters built in. And that's, if you're a Sony user, you know how huge that is. If you've never used an ND filter and know what an ND filter is, it is a lens, and you actually could go to my YouTube video, actually I just posted recently, that talks about ND filters and the purpose of them. But long story short, you can actually, without changing your camera settings, lower the amount of light that's actually entering the camera. So if you're in a very bright situation, like right now, I'm pretty well lit here. If I went ahead and turned this light up extravagantly, like if I came into here real quick and let my phone connect and like threw it up bright like this, like, oh God, but I could throw an ND filter without having to actually affect a light source, right? And I could actually change it up, but that's neither here nor there. But the fact that you do get 3 ND filter stops built in, that's pretty huge. You do get 10-bit recording through Canon's Canon C-Log 3, which is huge for up-and-coming like filmmakers who are doing different color presets or throwing different LUTs on there. If you don't know what a LUT is, maybe I should do another video. But here's where the game changer, I think, is against all these other cameras I mentioned so far. You have built-in active cooling. Now, we've seen this in other different Canon cameras, like the more higher end ones and more of their cinema line. So the fact that you're getting such a lower tier camera with built-in cooling that's said to be able to withstand over 2 hours of recording at 4K 30, that is going to be huge. That's going to be game changing in any video and streaming setup. Now, other cameras, you have to use some kind of third-party device or buy a first-party device and pay an extra like $200. But that's going to be a huge game changer in my mind. You do get Canon's dual pixel AF2, which is going to be pretty comparable to most of their newer cameras, I believe. What is the newest? Not the RS1. Oh, that's the R5 and the R6 was in there. Ooh, and that was nice when it first came out. Yeah, that's a heavy hitter. For anybody who's doing any kind of video work or film work, there are game-changing things in this camera that I think are very underrated or people are not thinking about are going to be just huge game changers, like chess pieces, if you will. You have a mic input, which is standard, right, for any kind of mic setup, but you have a full headphone dedicated output, meaning you're able to plug in a wired headset and monitor that audio track while you're recording before you record. That is insane. And the fact that you actually have that in such a lower end camera, no other camera has that setup. Actually, I take that back. I think the XM5 has it, but that's it. And so now we're seeing these content creator vlogger-esque cameras come out with things like that, like mic inputs, headphone outputs, cooling systems, ND stop filters. Like, these are going to be huge game changers, and I'm definitely curious what price this camera is going to be at. Is it going to be at a $1,000 price range? Is it going to be at like a $800, $850 price range? Let's talk about comparable cameras of why I think it's going to be potentially $1,000. So we have the Sony ZV-E1. This camera is typically starting about $750 right now. It has a built-in 24 to 70 millimeter equivalent lens, and it has a 1.8 to 2.8 aperture setting. Now, it does have a 1-inch sensor, so it's a smaller sensor, so it's not going to be as much, I guess. It'll be comparable, but not, right? And you can only do 4K 30 in S-Log 3. So given where the Canon specs has versus the Sony ZV-1, which is going to be its direct competitor, I could foresee it being definitely over 750. If I look at what Nikon has, Nikon right now, like originally their content creator, their low tier camera is the Z30. Now, it's hard to put the Z30 up against the ZV-1 or the Canon V1 because of the fact that those have singular built-in lenses. Nikon and even Fuji have interchangeable lens options, so it already takes it like a tier up, because you don't have to be stuck with that default glass. You could actually buy higher end glass later on and essentially upgrade your kit while maintaining that body and being able to get just better images, better bokeh, and a whole bunch of other stuff that comes with a new lens. So with that being, right now I think it's on sale for $700. Normally it's like $830. It has a big advantage compared to the Canon, but it's also lacking log. There's no log capabilities. There's no N-Log or anything like that with the Nikon Z30. It can do 10-bit video recording, but it's all just straight video files. It's either H.264, H.265. You don't get any color grading options outside of that. But you could go to the Z50 Mark II or the Z52, which does opt for N-Log, and it has 4K 60, again with a crop factor of a 1.5 crop, but you do get N-Log there, but you're also looking at $1,000. So again, when I'm looking at this Canon Powershot, this V1, I'm thinking at least $100, or $100, at least $1,000, given that the fact that Nikon has a very similar camera, but with interchangeable lenses, starting body alone at that 900 price range. But I think what the biggest competitor is, and people didn't expect this to be the competitor in 2025. I'm talking the Fujifilm X-M5. I have been dreaming about buying the X-M5. Like, I almost pulled the trigger a couple months ago when it first got announced, or when it was first announced, and then I didn't, and then it sold out everywhere. And I'm kicking myself because that thing has the potential to be a beast. It shoots 6K 30, 10-bit, Fuji log, whatever Fuji's log is, F log. I have no idea. I've never used Fuji like that. But the downsides, right? The body alone, or even with the kit lens, starts at $900. So again, Canon PowerShot V1 has almost the exact same features, maybe a little bit less, not interchangeable lenses like the XM5, but the XM5 is $900. Now, if you bought that kit and you wanted the additional cooling capabilities, you're looking at ponying up an extra $200. Yeah, $200 for a compatible first-party cooling system fan. I've never tried it. I have no idea if anyone else has tried it. I actually found an alternative through a Ulanzi cooling fan. You can actually see that video. I'll put a link there in the description below too. You can see that in my review at that option. That's a $50 fan, which has eradicated all my overheating problems, but nonetheless, right? The Fujifilm X-M5 is starting at $900. If you bought the fan, you're looking at an $1,100 investment. Now, you could use interchangeable lens. You could upgrade later on. That's great, but it's almost hand to hand, the same features, right, of the Canon PowerShot. So I really believe, with all that in mind, we're seeing a price tag minimum $950 to $1,000 for the PowerShot V1. Now, is it going to be worth it? I think 100%. If on paper is accurate that it could do all of that and not overheat, I think this is going to be the camera to beat for 2025 and maybe even to 2026, especially for content creator entry cameras. Now, this is not entry level. You could buy an R100, but the R100 is more photo based. Like these cameras, all these cameras I've talked about so far, there's one thing they don't have, well, except for the Z52, but all these cameras, we know they're dedicated video cameras and content creator cameras because they do not have this one thing. I'm talking to EVF. Yes, the EVF. If you don't know what an EVF is, it's that little rectangle thing that you look into your camera to see what you're going to shoot. That is what all these cameras are missing, and that is a typical photography centric part of a camera. Now, you can use it for videography, and I've seen a lot of people actually recommend using it for videography because it allows you to not have to use a third-party monitor and a whole sunshade to try to look at it. And a lot of people prefer it for focusing and stuff like that, but all these cameras don't have that. The Z50 Mark II or the Z52 has it, and again, that's about a $900 to $1,000 device. So given all of that, I think the Canon's going to still be the best to beat, hands down, because, and I'll tell you the one feature I think it's going to beat it, that cooling system, because no other camera has a cooling system built in like that. You can use third-party and first-party devices to replicate that, but Canon just has it on lock. And I personally have the Z30. I use that for my typical like photo shoots. That thing, if I don't use the cooling block, will overheat in 30 minutes at 4K 30. And every other camera, the ZV-1, you hear about it with the Fuji. And most cameras, unless you're buying like a Z6 III, a Z8, an FX30 or anything like that, you're having cooling issues, and keeping that camera cool, especially in like average like 80-degree weather, indoor, outdoor, your camera's going to fail. And even though you can record on like, you know, unlimited recording, that overheating is going to shut you down and shut you down quick. So Canon, I know, I mean, if you ever do see this, I would love to get my hands on it, even a test that let me borrow for like a week, try it out, compare it against my Nikon lineup, and send it back to you for the next reviewer. But I think that Canon camera is going to be the one to beat. And I really wanted the XM5, but now I might change my mind, especially knowing that Canon is coming soon to the US. I don't know when, but it'll get here. And I think any content creator who is considering buying a camera might want to wait just a couple months to see when that camera is going to get released. I'm Joe. This has been Mongo Excel. Let me know your thoughts below. Let me know what you think. Are you interested in this camera? Have you even heard about it before today? Let me know. And maybe when that camera does come out, I could get my hands on it and we could do a full in-depth analysis. Till then, I'm going to drink some water and talk about the next camera that came out. Oh my God. All the cameras are being announced. Have you seen that Sigma? That's pretty Sigma. No cap. Full Riz. Why are we still here? Peace.